Dust swirled in the dry air as the wind blew softly across the quiet alien village. The land was broken. The buildings were cracked. Most of the homes were empty now. The war had taken too much. It had taken food, homes, and children. Near the edge of the village, under a crooked tree with no leaves, a mother knelt on the ground. Her skin was pale gray, her arms thin. Her eyes, large and glowing, were filled with sorrow. She didn't move. She didn't cry anymore. She had cried too much already. In front of her was a tiny grave. The stone was small, the dirt still fresh. On the stone, scratched in the alien language, was a name: Sia, her daughter. The mother, called Tava, placed her hand gently on the cold stone. Her fingers trembled. "Forgive me," she whispered. "I wasn't strong enough." She closed her eyes, remembering the last time she saw her daughter. The child had been sick, very sick. There were no doctors, no medicine. The war had burned everything. When the soldiers came, they told her all the children had died in the attack. They said her child was gone, and so this grave was made. She had nothing to bury, only a small dress and a memory. Far away, across the burned forest, a man walked, through the dark. His face was tired, his boots were torn. He moved carefully, holding something close to his chest, a blanket wrapped around a small, breathing figure. The man's name was Jack. He was a human, a soldier, but not like the others. Days ago, during a silent patrol, he had found the little alien girl half buried in rubble. She was alive, just barely. She had burns on her back, her breath was weak. Her fingers had been clutching a broken toy. She looked dead, but something in Jack had told him to check again. And when he saw her chest rise just a little, he couldn't leave her. He hid her in his coat and walked away from his unit. It was dangerous. Helping the enemy was against orders. But Jack didn't care. "She's just a kid," he had told himself. "War or no war, we don't leave kids to die." Now inside a broken bunker deep underground, Jack laid the girl gently on a soft pile of blankets. He had used everything he had, his rations, his medicine, his warmth, to keep her alive. The little girl's name, he had learned, was Sia. She couldn't speak much. She was too weak. But when she opened her eyes, they were the same glowing color as the mother who cried at the grave. "Mom," Sia whispered in her sleep. "Where are you, Mama?" Jack's chest tightened. "She thinks you're dead," he muttered to himself. "And you think she's gone?" He looked at the girl. She was no longer burning with fever, but she was still very sick. He couldn't stay hidden forever. His food was running out. The human army would soon leave the area. If he didn't move fast, they'd both be lost. He sat beside her and gently brushed dust from her face. "I don't know your mother," Jack said softly, "but I swear I'll find her." Back at the village, Tava finally stood. Her legs were weak, but she didn't care. She looked at the sky. The sun was setting, turning the clouds purple and gold. The wind was cold. She didn't notice. She whispered again, "I will see you again, little one. Maybe in the next life." Then she walked back toward the village. Slow. Alone. She didn't know that her daughter was alive. She didn't know a human had saved her child's life. And she didn't know that fate was about to bring them back together. That night, as Sia slept, Jack packed a bag. He looked at a map and traced a path with his finger. His eyes were full of determination. "I'll bring her home," he said. But outside, the forest was full of danger. Other soldiers were hunting rebels. Alien patrols searched the land. The path to the village would not be easy. Still, Jack smiled. "I've made it this far," he said. "What's a little more trouble?" He picked up Sia and held her close. "Let's go find your mom." The bunker was cold. Its walls were cracked. Water dripped from the ceiling. But inside, a quiet warmth grew. Not from the place, but from the bond between the human and the alien child. Jack sat with his back against the wall, holding a spoon near the small girl's lips. "Come on, Sia." Just one more bite. The bum. Little alien girl blinked slowly. Her skin had lost its sickly blue tone. Her small hand, still trembling, reached for the spoon. She ate, slowly, carefully. It had been days since Jack found her. She had said little, just short whispers and soft sounds. But now she trusted him. Her eyes followed him when he moved. She smiled faintly when he told her stories. Jack had given her all his food. His supplies were nearly gone now. But when he looked at her, he didn't feel hunger. He felt something deeper. A need to protect. He didn't know her story fully, but he knew enough. The girl had survived when others hadn't. She had clung to life, and she had lost everything. Or so she thought. One night, Jack sat beside her, cleaning an old wound on her arm. The girl watched him in silence, then suddenly asked in a soft voice, "Why did you save me?" Jack stopped. The question hit hard. He looked at her glowing eyes filled with confusion and pain. "I don't know," he said. "Maybe because no one else did." Sia looked down. Then, very quietly, she said, "Mama thinks I'm dead." Jack nodded. "I know." Tears welled in her eyes. "She cried every night," Sia whispered. "She sang to me, even when I couldn't wake up." "You remember that?" Jack asked. Sia nodded. "I heard her. Even when I was under the rocks, I heard her voice." Jack's hands tightened around the cloth he was holding. He had seen soldiers do terrible things. He had seen fear in people's eyes, but this child's voice was the one that haunted him most. The next morning, Jack left the bunker before sunrise. He needed supplies. He needed answers. He walked carefully through the woods, hiding from both alien patrols and human drones. He reached a ruined outpost and dug through what was left: a torn backpack, a half-broken radio, a few sealed food packs. Suddenly, a voice crackled from the radio. "Sector clear. Pulling out in 48 hours. All soldiers report to base." Jack froze. 48 hours, that was all the time he had. He stuffed the food into his coat and ran back to the bunker. When he got back, Sia was drawing something on the dusty wall with a small stick. Jack looked at it closely. It was a face. A woman, long hair, big eyes. "Your mother?" Jack asked. Sia nodded. "She used to braid my hair," she said, "and tell me stories about the stars." Jack sat beside her. "What else do you remember about her?" he asked. Sia smiled faintly. "She smelled like warm bread." Jack chuckled. "That's a good smell." They sat there for a moment in silence, staring at the dusty drawing. Then Jack said, "We have to go soon." Sia looked up, nervous. "Where?" Jack gave her a small, kind smile. "Home. Back to your mother." That night, Jack made a plan. He marked paths on the map. He memorized where the patrols usually passed. He knew the road would be hard, but staying meant death. He looked at Sia. She was fast asleep, curled in a blanket. Her tiny chest rose and fell. She deserves to live, Jack whispered to himself. And she deserves her mother. Far away, in the village, Tava sat outside her home. She stared at the stars. She didn't cry anymore. Her tears had dried. But her heart had not stopped hurting. She touched the small bracelet on her wrist. Sia's bracelet. The only thing left. "If only I could hold you one more time," she whispered. She didn't know her child was alive. She didn't know a human had carried her daughter through fire and storm. But fate was moving, and the stars above were watching. Night fell heavy over the village. The wind whispered. Through the broken houses, shadows danced across the walls, and deep in the corner of the village, Tava sat alone, her arms around her knees, her back against the cold stone wall of her home. She hadn't eaten all day. Again. She stared up at the stars, trying to find comfort in them. But tonight they didn't shine the way they used to. They looked farther away, colder. Her fingers rubbed the small bracelet on her wrist. Sia's. tiny and old, made from leftover threads and shells, the only piece of her daughter she had left. "I still dream of her," Tava whispered. "I see her running in the fields, laughing, calling me Mama." The stars didn't answer. The wind didn't stop. Tava closed her eyes and leaned her head back. And then she prayed. She didn't pray to the gods of her people. Not anymore. They had stayed silent too long. No. She just spoke to the sky, hoping maybe, somehow, her voice would be heard. "If there is anyone out there, anything out there, please," she whispered. "Let her know I never stopped loving her." Far beyond the village, miles away, Jack walked through the night, carrying a bundle in his arms. The child, Sia, was asleep, her face pressed against his chest. They had left the bunker. There was no turning back now. Jack had memorized every path, every sound. He didn't use light. He walked slow, quiet, like a ghost through enemy land. But something strange happened that night. As he reached the top of a hill, something made him stop. The sky. It looked brighter. He glanced up. The stars were clearer, bigger, almost like they were watching. Then he heard a sound, not a noise from the forest, but a voice, a whisper, not in words, but something soft, something full of sorrow and love. It felt like a mother's prayer. He looked down at Sia, who stirred in her sleep and murmured, "Mama." A chill ran through Jack. Maybe it was just his tired mind playing tricks, or maybe, somehow, a mother's cry had reached her daughter's heart. Back in the village, Tava sat still. Something in her chest had changed. She didn't know what it was, but it felt warm. A strange peace filled her, like something far away had heard her. "I don't know if you're alive," she said softly, "but if you are, find your way back. I will wait." She stood and walked to the tiny grave, and this time she didn't kneel. She looked at it, then took off the bracelet from her wrist and placed it gently on the stone. "I'll come back tomorrow," she said, "but not to cry. I'll come back to remember you with love, not pain." And then she walked away. Meanwhile, Jack's path grew harder. A drone passed overhead. He ducked low under thick roots. He held his breath as red lights scanned the trees. Sia whimpered. Jack whispered, "Shh, it's okay, I've got you." The drone passed. He exhaled slowly. He looked ahead. Just one more ridge. Beyond that, the edge of the alien village. Almost there. But he knew what came next would be the hardest part. Would the mother still be alive? Would she accept her daughter back? Would she kill him for touching her child? He didn't know. But he would take the risk. Sia awoke just before dawn. Her voice was small. "Is it morning?" "Almost," Jack said. "We're close." She looked up. Her eyes sparkled a little. "You're really taking me home?" Jack nodded. "Yeah, I promise." She reached up and touched his chin. "You're not like the others." Jack gave a tired smile. "Maybe I just forgot how to be cruel." In the village, Tava stood near a fire pit, pouring the last bit of grain into a pan. She didn't expect visitors. She didn't expect miracles. But she felt something. A strange stirring in the wind, like footsteps. Coming closer. She turned sharply. But there was nothing. Only quiet. Still. Her heart beat faster. Something was coming. She just didn't know what. And on the last bend of the broken road, hidden behind trees and shadows, a human man stood still, looking down at the sleeping child in his arms. "We're here," Jack whispered. "Let's go bring you home." The edge of the alien village was in sight. Jack crouched behind a rocky hill, hiding beneath thick branches. He could see the tops of broken homes, the rusted towers, and the distant smoke rising from weak cooking fires. The child in his arms stirred. Sia blinked up at him, eyes tired but hopeful. "Is this My home? Jack nodded. Almost there. But his face didn't show peace. It showed worry, because he had a choice to make and time was running out. Behind him, in the far forest, the soft hum of human scout drones buzzed like angry bees. The withdrawal order was real. The humans were packing up, pulling out. They'd be gone within hours. If Jack was seen helping the alien child, helping the enemy, he'd be court-martialed, branded a traitor, or worse. He looked at the map again. The village was only 2 kilometers away, but so were the human patrols. He thought back to when he first found Sia, crushed under rubble, barely breathing, her small fingers gripping a broken piece of toy. Every soldier had walked past the bodies, burned, broken, silent, but Jack stopped. He had knelt. He had listened, a soft heartbeat, a weak breath. That was all it took. He knew then he couldn't leave her, and now she was alive, breathing, talking. He had kept her alive this long. He couldn't stop now. Suddenly a voice buzzed in his earpiece. All soldiers return. Repeat. Final scan in 30 minutes. All zones will be burned. No exceptions. Jack's heart dropped. Final scan. Burned. They were going to scorch the land before leaving. If he didn't get the child into the village. Now. Everything. Behind them would turn to ash, including the path they came from, including the bunker, including any chance of escape. He stared at the tiny girl in his arms. She was watching him, confused. "What's wrong?" she asked. Jack forced a smile. "Nothing. Kiddo, just thinking." But he was lying. Inside he was torn. He could still turn back. Rejoin his squad. Erase what happened. No one would know. Or he could risk everything. Walk straight into an alien village. Return a child he wasn't supposed to save. Face angry, alien parents. Or worse. But he remembered the grave. He remembered the name. Sia. She wasn't a number, not an enemy. She was a little girl who missed her mother. He took a deep breath. "I made a promise," he whispered. "And I don't break promises." He adjusted Sia in his arms and started walking. Each step felt heavier, each breath louder. His legs burned, his back ached, but he didn't stop. And as the village grew closer, he saw movement. A figure, standing in the road, thin, tall, still. Tava. She had been out early. Something in her heart had pulled her toward the edge of the village again like before, but this time she saw something, a man, a human, carrying a child. Her heart skipped. No, it couldn't be. She stepped forward. The man froze. Jack stared at her, her glowing eyes, her pale face, the trembling in her hands. Sia looked too. Her eyes widened. "Mama?" Tava gasped. "Sia!" The child reached out. Jack lowered her slowly to the ground. Sia's legs shook, but she took one step, then another, and then she ran. Tava fell to her knees, catching her daughter in her arms, clutching her so tightly she could barely breathe. Tears poured down her face. Real tears, not dry ones, but warm, endless, joyful tears. My baby, she sobbed. "I missed you, Mama," Sia whispered. "I thought I lost you forever." "I heard your voice," the child said. "Even when I was under the rocks, I heard you." Jack stood in silence, his heart beat loud in his ears. He had seen many things during the war, destruction, pain, death. But he had never seen something like this, a mother holding her miracle. Tava looked up, her eyes locked on Jack. For a moment, she was frozen. This human, one of them, had brought her daughter back. Her hands clutched Sia protectively. Jack didn't move. Then, slowly, she stood holding the child in her arms. She walked toward him, and then she did something he never expected. She bowed, low, deep, with tears still falling. "Thank you," she whispered. Jack didn't speak. He only nodded and stepped back. He turned to leave, but a small voice stopped him. "Wait," Sia said. "Don't go." Jack turned around. "You brought me home," she said. "You're part of this now." Tava looked at her child, and then at Jack. She didn't say yes, but she didn't say no either. The soldier's choice had been made, and it had brought a child back from the dead. But the story wasn't over yet. Smoke rose in the sky. The humans had begun their final act: fire. They were burning every forest, every shelter, every trace of where they had walked. Flames swallowed the trees. The wind carried ash like snow, and in the middle of that hell, Jack stood beside Tava and Sia, knowing time was running. "Out, we can't stay here," he said firmly. "They're coming." Tava held her child tightly. "Where will we go?" Jack pointed toward the cliffs in the east. "There's a hidden pass through the rocks. My people won't burn it. Too steep, too risky, but I've walked it before." Tava looked back at her broken home. Her people were still sleeping, unaware that fire was crawling toward them. "I must warn the others," she said. "There's no time," Jack said. "The fire moves fast. If we don't leave now, Sia won't survive the smoke." Sia, weak from her wounds, coughed lightly and pressed her face into her mother's shoulder. Tava closed her eyes. She had already lost her daughter once. She wouldn't lose her again. "Lead the way," she said. The journey began through broken paths and cracked hills. The heat of the fire was already warming their backs. Ash fell from the sky like gray rain. Tava carried Sia in her arms. Jack led them, moving fast, clearing branches, guiding them with sharp eyes and steady hands. Behind them, the village vanished into smoke. Flames reached rooftops, walls collapsed, and no one looked back. Halfway up the trail, the smoke grew thick. Tava stumbled, coughing, her vision blurred. Jack turned back. "Give her to me," he said. Tava hesitated, then nodded. Jack took the girl into his arms again and moved faster. His legs burned, but he didn't stop. He could feel the fire behind them like a living monster, chasing them higher and higher. "Don't stop," he shouted. "Almost there." Suddenly, the trail ended at a sharp drop. Below was a narrow bridge of stone, barely wide enough for one person at a time. On either side, steep cliffs fell into black smoke. Tava gasped. "This is the path?" Jack nodded. "It's the only way." He stepped onto the bridge carefully, holding Sia tight. Each step was slow. The stone cracked under his boots. The wind howled. One mistake and they would fall. Tava followed close behind, her hands shaking. Then, behind them, flames leaped over the trees. The fire had reached the pass. "Faster!" Jack yelled. The wind shifted. Smoke pushed into their lungs. Tava coughed. Hard, nearly falling. Jack reached the other side and gently laid Sia on the ground. Then he turned back. Tava was still on the bridge, frozen. She couldn't breathe. She dropped to her knees. Jack's heart pounded. Without thinking, he ran back across the narrow bridge, back through the smoke, and grabbed her arm. "I've got you," he shouted. He pulled her up. She couldn't see. Her legs didn't work, but Jack dragged her across the final steps as fire reached the edge of the stone. They collapsed on the other side. Tava gasped for air. Jack coughed hard. The flames stopped at the cliff, unable to follow. They were safe. For now. Later, under a dark rock ledge, they sat in silence. Sia slept beside a warm fire Jack had built using the last of his dry gear. Tava watched her with tired eyes full of tears. "She should have died," she whispered. "No one survives what she went through." Jack didn't speak. Tava looked at him. "Why did you save her?" He stared into the fire. "Because she reminded me of someone." "Who?" Jack's eyes were distant. "My sister. She died when I was a boy. I couldn't save her." Tava's voice softened. "But you saved mine." Jack nodded slowly. "Maybe that's why I'm still alive. To fix what I couldn't back then." Tava reached across the fire and touched his hand, not in fear but in thanks. I don't know what you are, she said, but you're not like the others. Jack gave a small smile. Neither are you. Above them, stars blinked through the smoke. Below them, the land still burned. But in that small cave, something beautiful had happened. A mother, a child, and a human, bound not by blood, but by something stronger. Choice. And Jack had made the right one. Morning came slow. The sky was gray, painted with the ashes of what had burned the night before. Trees stood like black bones. Smoke still rose from the valley below. But in the small cave carved into the cliffside there was peace. Sia stirred under the thin blanket. Her soft breathing broke the silence. Her mother sat beside her, eyes never leaving her child's face. As if afraid she might vanish again, Tava brushed a strand of hair from her daughter's forehead. You came back to me, she whispered. You really came back. Jack sat farther away near the mouth of the cave, sharpening a broken knife on a flat stone. He wasn't sure if he belonged in this moment. It felt sacred, like something he wasn't supposed to see. Still, he stayed. He had fought through fire, smoke, and fear to bring them together. And now, seeing them like this, it felt like everything had been worth it. Later, when the sun was high, Sia opened her eyes fully. She turned to look at her mother. Really look. Mama? Tava broke into tears again. I'm here, she said quickly. I'm right here. Sia reached out. They held each other, breathing deep, like trying to catch up on all the hugs they missed in the days they thought were lost. Then, Sia looked past her mother and saw Jack. She smiled. Hi. Jack smiled back. Hey, Starshine. Tava looked at Jack now. Really looked. Her eyes were softer, gentler. My daughter speaks of you like a hero, she said. I'm no hero, Jack replied. Just a man who couldn't walk away. That evening, a shadow approached from the forest beyond the ridge. Tava spotted it first. She stood quickly, shielding Sia behind her. Jack drew his knife and stepped forward. But the shadow raised its hands, empty, peaceful. It was an elder from the village, an old alien woman wrapped in smoke-stained cloth. She had seen the fires from afar. She had followed the smoke, searching for any survivors. When she saw Sia, she dropped to her knees. By the stars, the elder whispered. She lives. News spread quickly. By nightfall, other survivors from the village came. The fire had destroyed everything. Homes, food, records. But hope had survived, in the form of a little girl thought dead, and the human who brought her home. They built a new camp farther east, in a clearing untouched by flames. Tava and Sia stayed, close, always holding hands, always within sight of each other. But Jack stayed at the edge. He helped gather supplies, chopped wood, cleared space for shelters, yet never asked for thanks, never sought attention. Still, whispers followed him. That's the human, the one who saved the child. Why would he do that? Some feared him. Others respected him. But one thing was clear. He was not their enemy anymore. One night, around a small campfire, the village gathered. Tava stood. In the center, Sia beside her. She lifted the child's hand into the air. She was gone, Tava said, and I buried an empty grave. Eyes filled with tears around her. But this man, she turned toward Jack, chose to give up everything. He gave her back to me. He gave us back to each other. She stepped forward, then did something no one expected. She took Jack's hand. From this day on, she said, you are not just a human. You are one of us. The crowd was silent. Then, one by one, they stepped forward, touching Jack's hand, his shoulder, bowing lightly, a gesture of welcome, of belonging, of home. Later that night, Sia sat beside Jack as he watched the stars. "Do you miss your home?" she asked. Jack looked up. "Sometimes." "Why did you help me?" Jack thought for a long moment. "Because saving you felt like saving myself." Sia rested her head on his arm. "You're my hero," she said. Jack blinked hard. "Nah, I just got lucky." "No," she said, smiling. "I prayed for you. I asked the stars for someone kind, and they sent you." Behind them, Tava watched, her eyes warm with tears. Not of pain, but of peace. Her child was alive, and the man who brought her back was no longer just a stranger. He was part of their story now. Forever. The stars looked different now. Brighter. Closer. As if they too had witnessed the miracle. Jack stood at the edge of the new village, looking over the small clearing where tents and shelters had risen from ash. Children played near the fire. Laughter returned to voices that once only knew crying. And in the middle of it all was Sia. Alive. Smiling. Running barefoot in the grass with other kids. Her laughter was soft and high like wind chimes. Her mother, Tava, watched her every move with grateful eyes. This place had been filled with sorrow. Now it held life again. But Jack, he didn't feel like he belonged. Every time someone thanked him, he looked down. Every time someone called him the human who saved a child, he shrugged. He hadn't done it to be a hero. He had done it because his heart wouldn't let him walk away, that's all. Later that day, Tava approached him with a bowl of warm stew in her hands. He looked up from where he was fixing a broken tent. "Post." "You didn't have to," he said. "I wanted to," she replied softly, handing him the bowl. He took it, nodding once. "Thanks." She sat beside him. For a moment, neither spoke. Then she said, "You're leaving, aren't you?" Jack stayed quiet for a second. Then he nodded. "Your people don't need me anymore." Tava looked at the children playing. "My people didn't just need someone to save a child," she said. "We needed someone to show us what kindness looked like again." Jack looked away. "I've done enough damage in this galaxy," he said. "One good deed doesn't fix it." Tava placed a hand on his. "You didn't just save my daughter," she whispered. "You brought her back from a grave I was ready to lie in myself." Her voice trembled. "You gave me life again." Jack didn't know what to say. That evening, the village lit a lantern for every soul they had lost in the fire. One by one, the people stepped forward to say a name and place a flame in the river. Tava held Sia close. But when it was her turn, she did something different. She held up the last lantern, one she had made herself. It was small, painted with stars, and little flowers. "This one," she said to the crowd, "is not for the dead." The people looked confused. Tava turned toward Jack. "This is for the living, for the one who saved us." She looked him straight in the eyes. "Jack, this is your light." Sia stepped forward and handed him the lantern. Jack took it, hands trembling. He walked to the river, knelt, and gently placed the lantern in the water. It floated beside the others. But unlike the rest, this flame wasn't for mourning. It was for hope. Days passed. Jack didn't leave. He taught the villagers how to fortify their shelters. He hunted in the forest with the alien youth. He even helped Sia build a swing between two trees. Though, she claimed he tied the rope all wrong. For the first time in a long time, Jack laughed. One morning, Sia ran up to him with something in her hand. It was a drawing, made with colored dirt and leaves. It showed 3 figures: a tall man, small girl, and a woman with glowing eyes. Jack smiled. "Who's this?" he asked, pointing to the tall figure. "That's you," she said proudly. Jack chuckled. "I thought I was taller." Tava came behind her, arms crossed, smiling. "She won't stop drawing you." Jack stood, brushing dust from his clothes. I guess that means I'm stuck here. Tava stepped closer. Would that be so bad? Jack looked at her, the strength in her eyes, the kindness behind them. He didn't answer. He didn't need to. That night, as the stars blinked awake, Sia fell asleep between them. Jack sat with Tava under the sky. Silence again. But this time, it was peaceful. Not heavy. Not lonely. Just still. Tava rested her head gently on his shoulder. I wept at a grave, she whispered, but the universe had other plans. Jack stared at the stars, and I thought I'd never find peace again. She smiled. You didn't find it. You made it. And there, under alien stars, in a land born again from fire and tears, a human, who had once only known war, became part of a family. He didn't wear a uniform. He didn't carry a weapon, but still, he was a protector, a savior, a man who brought life, not through power, but through choice.